Today we're rolling with the hot mess vibe. Last several hours have been a little rough, and been thinking about a lot of stuff that I don't want to think about, and crying a lot. So, yeah. So I decided when I got up today, it's like, you know what? Fuck the makeup. Fuck all that. Yeah. I just put on yesterday's clothes even because I didn't do anything to get gross or whatever. So it's like, yeah, whatever. We're just recycling. So yesterday was it was a good day, and I took the dogs to PetSmart, and they know if I go there and they're with me, they're gonna get something. Usually they're gonna get something one way or another. I went after bird food yesterday, but since they were in the car, had to come out with the little dental sticks that they have in there that I can get individually. And when I got back to the car, they were all excited to get them, and Ziva was like damn near pushing me out of the car to get hers. And then we went and we had our walk, and everything was good, and they were all excited about their dinner when we got home. And I'm not entirely sure. Honestly, I think it's just the universe kind of preparing me. When I went to the kitchen for dinner, Ziva was laying on the floor and didn't want to get up. That's kind of unusual for her, especially if we're going to the kitchen, because that's her favorite room in the house. She has been notorious in her lifetime for getting on the table, and since we've been back at my parents' house, she is notorious for leaving muddy paw prints on my mom's computer on the top of it, and that's usually how we know she's been up there. She doesn't do that like she used to. She will nab something off the edge of the table if it's where she can get it. But I usually, if I'm leaving for any reason, will make sure that there's nothing on the table, especially if everybody's leaving, just because I know how she is. Right, but for whatever reason, last night, when I went to go into the kitchen, she didn't want to get up, and she was kind of acting like she was struggling with it a little bit, like when I tried to talk her into it. And then she kind of yelped when I went to pick her up, or help her up, because I wasn't about to leave her there like that. Like she was still looking at me and kind of put her nose in the air and made the attempt, but not completely. And I wasn't sure that something wasn't going to happen last night with her. And of course, after seeing how she was doing, it's like that I really wasn't hungry. So I ate not much. She went in there, she got a drink of water, and then laid down with her back to the table, which very unlike her. And I was all sorts of stressing out, right? And we went back to the office, and I put my water on the desk, and then ran into the bathroom real quick. I think if I would have sat in my chair, I would have, well, here lately, she's been going over to sit by my desk, or by me at my desk, more than she has in a long time. And I kind of was hoping she would do that yesterday, but then since I had to stop before I got settled back in, she did not, and she was over by the door. And I've just been all sorts of wound up at the possibility of losing this dog. And cried a ridiculous amount. I feel like, just in thinking through everything today, I feel like God, the universe, whatever you want to call it, like it's preparing me for the next thing. But to get to the next thing, I feel like there's a really good chance, real good probability at this point in time. She is 12, that I feel like I'm getting prepared for that part of it. And that, unfortunately, that's a necessary part of this whole shift. And I was commenting on something so I watched this morning. I got sidetracked in thinking about how, I got this dog right after I got married. And I feel like, okay, she's at a time when I couldn't protect myself. She was there and she did what she could. Right. She knows I'm talking about her. So, I've talked on here a lot too. I have all these Cancer placements in my chart and absolutely no Earth. But then I have my little Earth dog, which is a little Capricorn. And, it's funny because, when I was growing up, my brother's the Capricorn, so it's he was the grounded one at a time. I've never been grounded. I have to actively work on that. It's not easy for me. But I'm finding ways to do it. But still, she has been with me for a lot of the hard shit. And she was partly the reason I got my TBI. Because we had just gotten her and I was trying to keep her off of the steps. Thanks. And I had to take clothes up to the kids' room. And when I went up there, I had blocked her so she couldn't follow me. And then when I'm up in his room putting stuff away, I turn around and she's sitting there in the doorway wagging her tail, just so proud of herself because she made it up there with me. And she's definitely proud of herself. And I was a little concerned because I wasn't sure how she was going to do on stairs in general. And those stairs were really steep. So I was afraid she was going to get hurt on the stairs. And so I went part of the way down and then tried to get her to come to me to see how she handled the first few. And she just stood there and wagged her tail at me. So I went up and picked her up. And when I turned around and like I didn't go all the way up to the top, but I went as far as I had to pick her up. And when I stood back up and turned around, my foot slipped on the step and we went down. And we didn't fall all the way down the stairs or anything. We landed really hard on the step that we landed on. And I didn't hit my head, but I cracked my teeth together really hard. And, you know, everything went kind of black and starry. And I was still completely aware of what was going on. And I was trying to figure out how I'd landed. I wasn't sure I hadn't broke my jaw, honestly, like the way or how hard my teeth cracked together. And I kind of had that concern for probably about a week, honestly, just because it was like everything hurt so much. But I had her under my arm when I fell, and so she was my first, my first instinct was she okay? After I was like processing how I landed, because I had my hand on the banister and like, just like how it was hurting, how I had hit my wrist and everything and my elbow and all that fun stuff. I was trying to process through that, but then as soon as, then it was, is she okay? Because as I started coming back to where I could see again, it's like I was never knocked out or anything. It's just everything was starry, and it took a bit. And she was fine. She got really protective of me after that. And, it's like when my ex would try to fuck with me, like she was almost always on my lap or nearby and would like start growling at him and all sorts of stuff. Like she didn't want him having anything to do with me. And she was very, very protective of me. And I needed it. It was like everything was kind of, I guess, chaotic at that point in time. I already knew I was in a situation I shouldn't be in, but felt like because of basically the conditioning that I had in my lifetime that I was supposed to be there, but yet nothing was lining up with supposed to be there. I had the negative synchronicities showing me that I very much should not be there, and all sorts of stuff. So it's like she was right there with me on that whole journey. Every time I tried to leave, she went with me. Every time we went back, she was with me. It's like, I've spent a lot of time, honestly kind of sad about how much time I wasted in that connection. How much stress it put on her, going back and forth all the time, because she's definitely had some PTSD after we left, especially when, we first got back to Indy. She spent a few months hyper vigilantly staring out the front window to see if he was going to show up again. And it was kind of rough in that time span because the neighbors, the husband works for a car dealer, and at that time he was driving the same thing my ex had just gotten. So she would hear that, and so that was, part of that hypervigilance, being stressed out about is it them or is it him, and you just kind of tell, like, the way she was just watching all the time. And honestly, it was probably that whole year. And I say that because, I had a job working at a factory for a time in there. And when I was gone, that was, I don't know. I know she's always just sat around and waited for me to get back when I've been gone. But after I started working at the factory, which was after the divorce was finalized, it's like she's still on alert all the time. She knows I'm talking about her. Yeah. But as it got closer to the first anniversary of the wedding after the divorce was finalized, I started getting really, wound up because I was stressed out that I was going to hear from him again. And it's like I hadn't heard anything in a while, and that was because I tried to block him in all ways I knew I needed to, and all that fun stuff. And she's felt everything. There's no doubt in my mind on that. We had some, moments over the years where, this was when I was at the factory too. She had one episode, when she was a puppy, and when my ex was, I think, overseas for job training, for the job that took us to Alabama. It was like a seizure, but not. And it was really stressful. I thought it was a seizure at that point in time. And I called the vet to see what they said. And their advice at that time was to, write down everything, how long it lasted and what she was doing. And, if it happened again, keep track of how long was in between and all that information. But then she didn't end up doing it again until we moved back up here, and we're up here for over a year. And she did it in April, and she did it again in May. And the one in April, it's April 2020. It lasted a while. And I was down on the floor with her. We ended up taking her to the emergency vet. And of course, since it was in the pandemic, we couldn't go in with her, which was a whole stressful thing in and of itself. I think she stopped right before we got in the car to go over there. And then she didn't do it again while we were there, so they ran some tests, couldn't find anything. And the next time, she did it while I was at work, and my mom was able to get a video of it to show what she was doing. And so they took her to the emergency vet and showed them the video, and they said it didn't look like a seizure. It looked like she was having some kind of neurological event. And So the next step would be consulting with a neurologist. But then she didn't do it anymore. The last time she did that was May 2020. But then we had this other thing come up where she started having episodes not quite the same. And like she would just like lay there like a log and shaking a lot. And I thought she was going to be doing the same thing that she had, because she's always like, anytime she's done something like this, she's like, every time it's getting ready to happen, she starts getting really clingy and staying close to me. And I mean, she's a Kelpie, and she's very much she's mine. She's my sidekick, and she used to be that close to me all the time. And then since we've been in an environment where she's kind of been able to relax a little bit, she won't necessarily go out of her way to stay right with me like she used to, especially since we got the other two back there. But if something's getting ready to happen, then she does tend to get real clingy. So that's another thing with where she was stressing me out a lot here lately, because like she's started to come in and sit right next to me again. And sometimes her eyes look kind of different. And like that was one of the things with the episodes that she was having before. They said that was the neurological thing. It's like her eyes started looking really cloudy before she would go into it. So every now and then it's like they would look a little different than normal, and I'd get all stressed because I wasn't sure she wasn't getting ready to do something like that. But on the one hand, luckily, no, she has not. On the other hand, I feel like she's trying to help me get ready for when it finally is time. And I think the hardest part about the whole thing, it's like, she's been right with me through like all of my hardest moments, right? And it's like, she's 12. I get it. And I've joked about her needing to stay around for a long time. Giving me the one Kelpie that didn't make it into the Guinness Book of World Records was still like 29, but they couldn't prove it, so that's why it didn't make it into the book. But then there was a blue heeler that made it to 30. But ever since I heard that about her, it's like, all right, that means you got to stick around for a long time. And I feel like you'd make such a production of everything. Yeah. I feel like I've been doing all this healing work the past little over a year in this space. But it's been like an ongoing thing for like forever, right? You just chill. And I feel like she's kind of trying to nudge me in that direction of knowing it's about that time. And honestly, that was when Holly died on January 1st, it's like I had a little more distance from that with that one because it was my dad's dog, and yeah, I've lived with her for a long time now, but at the same time, she was still theirs, right? And they got Holly shortly after I got Ziva, because I got Ziva in April and they got Holly, I think, in like September. And so Ziva's about 6 months older than Holly, and they were best friends like from the get-go. And when Holly died, obviously it kind of it hit hard for everybody, but I feel like Ziva was kind of giving me that nudge back then that her time is not far away either. This morning I've been thinking a lot about how when Chance died, I was especially upset at that point in time because he was like family dog, but he was my dog. But I was really kind of pissed at my mom at that time frame because she put the final decision making on when it was his time on me rather than having family conversation or anything. She said, "This is your dog, you have to decide that." It's like, so that was in 2014. And so I had Ziva then. It was like, I'm thinking about the overlap in, how Chance was my world, and then I got Ziva, and he was still my world, but she was right there too, and how she was with me when his time came. She's actually there. For the majority of that pack, right? So they helped me train her. She's the easiest dog I've ever had to housebreak. Because while, we had a little rental house that was like less than 15 minutes away, I was bringing her back to hang out with the big dogs all the time, and she loved it. And I think they taught her a lot. How much they enjoyed her, I don't know, but because she was a puppy, but she's amazing. Yeah. So, okay, so I got her in April of 2013. Yeah. It was like mid-April. On April 30th, Molly died. And Molly was one of the younger ones, really, but see, this is so aggravating. It's like I kind of put it out to the universe the order that I would be okay with that bunch going, because, or just because of like my connection to them, right? So that pack was like huge in the breakup with, well, Chance was with me for both breakups, both the serious boyfriends, and then Maggie, Molly, and Doogie were there for the second one, which was the one that hit harder. And I remember being kind of stressed out about the fact that, we had 4 dogs that were all relatively close in age and how that was going to play out. And I remember thinking the order that I felt would probably be best for me personally, knowing that I've always been really attached to my dogs. There's like, I felt like Molly would be first, and then Doogie, and then Chance, and then Maggie, which was technically my mom's dog, but she was, well, family dog, so. So yeah, we got Ziva mid-April, and then April 30th, Molly started having a bunch of stuff go wrong and ended up having to be put down things were going wrong. Like, her back end started going out when we were walking, and then one day the front end started going too, and then she was having a hard time standing up. And then that day that she went, my dad had a doctor's appointment. My mom didn't want to go with him, but he talked her into it. So they had Molly in the backyard. It was a nice day. She was laying under a tree. She'd eaten, and she was wagging her tail and looked really happy when they left, right? And they asked my aunt to keep an eye on her while they were gone, because my aunt lives next door, so she could see, well, from her back door, she could see Molly laying in the yard. Wouldn't have been able to tell what was going on with her or anything, but able to check on her anyway. When I got home, it was probably like 10 minutes after they had left for the appointment. And, well, it wasn't technically my home at that point. It was, I'd gotten over there with Ziva, and when I got to the backyard, she was having seizures, and I don't think she knew me at all the last little bit that I was there. I don't think she knew me at all that day. But like when she started seizing up, I texted my mom and said that when I found her, she was laying in the yard and kind of drool everywhere and looked like something was going on. And then she started seizing when I was there. And so I, was filling her in on what was going on. I took Molly into their room and laid her on the floor and had the other dogs blocked out so they weren't in her face. Because when I picked her up, I wasn't so sure she wasn't going to bite me, but I think it was just something going on with the seizure she was having. But, like, I remember saying that was the order. It's like that I would have to be okay with, I guess. And it started with Molly, And then I remember, because I had thought the order, like way before it was actually time. And Doogie was next. And, he died in October. And he was one that he had congestive heart failure, and he'd been coughing for a while, but then it seemed like once we started treating him for the coughing, it seemed like it actually sped the whole process up. He ended up dying at home. He died in my arms. And for him, I think I was relieved that nobody had any decision to make. He made it on his own because it was time, and he was he was trying to get away from me. I know he was, but I couldn't leave him alone. And so he died in my arms. And that was October 2013. And then in October 2014, I had to make a decision for Chance. That was the worst decision I've ever had to make. And I was really mad at my mom for for forcing me to make it on my own. But, I still had Ziva. So it's like, there were the disconnections okay, so, like that, the relationship with that guy, it's like that one, I mean, I thought it was great at the time. It had things about it that were good, but there were other things that were not so good as well, right? But, after that relationship ended, I had that group of dogs that were very, very close to me and very much with me, to help me go through that whole process. And then I ended up going in the military. And so I was gone for a little bit, but then of course when I got picked up from the airport, they were in the car waiting on me. And the best part of being back home. So then, and they were also still there at the early stages of, being married. Because that was November 2012. So, November 2012, and then to April, we get Ziva. End of April, Molly dies. October, Doogie dies. Following October, Chance dies. I think Maggie ended up living till 2017, which was good because she was never the only child, because since my parents already knew that she was on borrowed time at that point, they got Holly in September, I think. And Holly was September 2013. And then Doogie died in October 2013. And then I don't remember when they got Pepper. But it's like there's a staggering of things. So it's like getting ready for one phase, but I guess allowing the old way of being to fade out and the new to fade in, right? They're snoring. Yeah. But I feel like I'm at a point psychologically, emotionally, how many times have I said I'm ready for the next phase, right? And I feel like that's going to be one of the things that has to happen to close out this chapter. Like I said, I'm just never gonna be ready for it. Fuck my contact up. Hold on. Okay. I had my contact folded on my eye. Yeah, but I feel like it's going to be one of those things that's just kind of necessary to close out this chapter. But I don't like it at all. They're used to me crying today. But like, I think I started to say at one point, I don't know if I finished it, but it's like, I remember kind of speaking this stuff into existence, ultimately, because I said it would have to be Molly first, then Doogie, then Chance, and then Maggie later. And Chance being the one that I was the closest to, but then also Maggie in a lot of ways. She taught me a lot of stuff. She was the one that showed me that she was the actual leader of the dog pack, because when Molly and Chance used to bicker and we're getting ready to get into it, she'd just go stand in between them and wouldn't do anything, just would stand there and let her energy control the situation, and eventually they would both just kind of like sigh and turn over and leave each other alone, go back to their separate corners. It's like, that dog's the alpha right there. Yeah. But I remember around that time, well, I think I started thinking about it around the time Chance was getting ready to go. I don't really remember. I remember thinking that 3 was the ideal number of dogs for me, because if you had 1 and something happened to it, then you're on your own to heal, and it feels like a replacement when you go to get another one. Then if you had 2 and something to happen to one of them, then it's still a big hit to the pack, and complicated healing process. And it still feels like you're replacing them, right? So then I was like, but if you have 3, then you have somebody else to help you heal in that time. And since there are 2 others, then you don't have to feel like you're replacing it. You can take the time to heal and it not be a problem. And then whenever you're good and ready, then you can introduce somebody else to the pack. I remember putting that sort of thought out there somewhere along the line, and it was before I got these other two. At least I'm pretty sure. And see, that wasn't at all, I don't know. Started to say that wasn't at all the intention, but I think in a way it kind of was. It was like me telling me what I was going to be okay with, right? So especially since this one's going to be probably the hardest whenever it does come around, because of how much she's been with me through. And I have the other two. They're ready for whatever is going to happen. Like, it's the nice thing about dogs. They're very chill and in the moment. And it's just part of life, right? Part of the cycles. And, you know, I've joked about her giving me a real long time, but at the same time, also seeing the little health things along the way that have shown that maybe that, you know, and I think a big part of that with all those little health things was so that whenever the time does finally come around, then I can't just talk myself into completely feeling bad all the time about it, because she's had stuff going on through the years. Like right now, I know there's something going on with her liver, because like her numbers jumped up. I think she's been trying to help me get ready. In all these little ways. But it still sucks. You know, like, she had me stressed out last night, you know, after she didn't look like she was having any luck getting up on her own, until I kind of pushed her into it, and, you know, she ended up in the kitchen with me, but then she did walk back to the office on her own, but she was very slow about it, and then she laid in the door for a while, and when I was there laying with her, crying in her face, spending the time with her, she seemed pretty content. We got to a point where, like, I'd been thinking about wanting to write for a little bit, and then I was just like, I want to go to bed. I didn't want to go to sleep yet, but I was ready to go to the bedroom anyway. So when I was going to do that, like, she wouldn't get up at all. Like, I turn the lights off. Normally, as soon as I start turning the lights off and they know we're going to bed, then, you know, they all up and ready for their bedtime snacks and all that stuff. And, you know, like, even when I bribed her into the kitchen at dinner time, I kept trying to bribe her with the cookie idea. I only had one of them look at me. And, like, she didn't seem interested in it at all, which was the biggest thing for me that was really concerning, because, you know, she's very food motivated, and always has been. She did eat a couple of these little treats that I gave her, but she didn't act hugely interested in having to have them. So this is the dog that will get the container off of the shelf and he helps. He very much helps. But I think she's partly a ringleader on that. I don't know. He's pretty guilty. What? You want more water? Do we need to hear you be a camel again? Hold on. Alright. The camel is only partly happy. He says I stopped too soon. This dog would drink all the water out of the bowl as soon as it's put in the bowl. Ooh, almost sat on his sister. She don't like that. Yeah. I've always had to pull him out of it before he's ready because he will just sit there and drink nonstop. And I think part of that was in the short span of time where he had to stay with my ex when I was not there. He spent a lot of time in the box and didn't know when the next time he would see the water bowl was or when he'd get a bathroom break or any of that stuff. So I think that's part of the issue on that end. Hi. You talk about it? Thank you. But yeah. Have to excuse her face. She's grimy. She got mud up there by her eye, and because it's not all sleepy stuff, I don't think. But she won't let me move it at the moment. It's okay. Anyway, I don't honestly remember where I was before that. But I got a dog with her foot on my arm. I know, it's okay. Chill. We're almost done. But see, like these little moments where they're up here by me and then she's still over here in her little spot. That always kind of bothers me too, but she's 12. You know, I know that. But yeah. Anyway, get back in the back seat, would you? No! Stop. Did you lick the window? Stop. Now she's up. Now she's up. Yeah. Stop. Sit. He's trying to come up here with me. Taz, we're almost done. Anyway. Stop. He might not let me not give him more water. They have drank all of that. Decided since they're going through my stuff and I haven't cleaned the other cup yet, then I'd just bring that. And it's worked well, but yeah. Anyway, yeah, but I feel like it's just like kind of the closing out of a cycle, and I really hate that. But then at the same time, it's like I did put that intention out there that 3 were more ideal for me, because if something happens to one, then you still got the other 2, right? And there have been moments since we've been, since it's just been the 4 of us, even though we're living technically with my mom and dad and their dog now. There have been moments where it's been like 3 is a lot of dogs for one person. And I love them to death. I do. But yeah, sometimes it's a lot. And I think it's mainly that, like, those little needy moments, because they all have those where they're, like, in my face and I can't sit on the floor. That's a problem. What are you looking at for? Yeah. But I don't know. I just spent some time thinking about that this morning. It's like, this is literally that thing I send out to the universe to to determine what I would be okay with when it was closer to time. It's like, I think it's closer to time, but I don't like it, and I'm never going to be ready for it. I might have a bunch of hard days before something actually happens. Okay, last night when we went to bed, like, she didn't want to get up at all. Like, I carried her to the dog bed because I wasn't sure she was going to make it through the night, to be honest. So I carried her to her bed, and for a while, she's been more interested in sleeping on the little elevated bed that's next to my bed. She was always right with me wherever, and if in the time that I was in Alabama, like all that time, she was like close to me, as close as she possibly could be, whether she's sleeping in between my knees or, like in the middle of my back, whatever. It's like we were always really tight, and I know that a big part of that was that, that imposing energy from him and her trying to protect me from it as much as she could on her own. And then, then when we got the other two, it took all three of them to get me to the point where I was okay with leaving that last time. And I've talked about that before too, because that was, I think the week that we were leaving for good, he had this day that he determined that I just needed to get laid and then I would stay, and tried to force himself on me, and I shoved him and he stumbled back and hit this little wall. And as soon as like I pushed him back, like all three dogs jumped up and like came to my aid, and like, Gidget laid on my chest. She's the baby. So she laid across my chest, and Taz was standing over my waist, and Ziva was standing over my feet, and they were just snarling at him. Gidget was more wagging her tail, like, please don't do anything stupid. And the other two were ready to defend me however they needed to. And I just had this moment. It's like, just seeing how quickly they jumped to my aid when I was ready. It's like, they're doing their job of protecting you, and now it's your job to protect them. It is time to leave. And that was it. So we left. But yeah, like, because before that, where I was, there was a span of time where, honestly, I didn't care if it got to, like, if something happened and it came to me dying for whatever reason, because I just didn't care. I couldn't care. I didn't have it in me to care about me at that point in time. And it's like Ziva did what she could to be my protector in that time when I didn't care about me, and she gave me something outside of myself to care about and, be concerned about. But then that last time, like, when they all three, like, because I saw my ex stand up and start swatting at Ziva, trying to, like, provoke her to bite him, because he had every intention. I could tell he had every intention at that point in time where he was going to do something, whether to me or to the dogs, to get to me. It was just kind of at that point, I'd outused my usefulness, or outserved my purpose. He got what he wanted. He got custody of his kid, and then, he was done with me, right? And, yeah. There was one day he chased Taz around the living room trying to kick him, and, that was kind of what made me get in his face and start pushing back. And, like, it wasn't physical, really. It was mainly emotional and psychological, absolutely. But when he started chasing Taz, that was the thing that made me start pushing back, because I wasn't going to let him do anything to my dog. And he liked Ziva for the most part, but resented the fact that, we got this Kelpie because it was his dream dog, he said, even though, because he'd had one before, even though he only had one picture of himself with that dog. That's how close they were. Yeah, but and that night when I got after him about it, he said something about hating male dogs. It's like, then why did you let me get him? Why was that a thing? It's like, if you really hated him or hated male dogs that badly, why would you allow it to be in the house, for that matter? And yeah, that didn't sit right. But anyway. But they were the big push on getting me out of there. And in this time of refinding myself, I guess, or maybe finding myself, period, because I feel like I've spent a lot of time kind of lost within myself. I talked yesterday about, as soon as I said that, I forgot what I was saying. About how if I'd ever been encouraged to listen to that inner voice, the heart space, the heart voice, then I wouldn't have been in any of the situations that I've been, like in the bad ones anyway. And I was talking about that deal with my cousin, when I was little. I said 6 or 7, I think 5 or 6 maybe even. We were young. Yeah, probably 6-ish. When that her whole kerfluffle came about. But it's like, when I stood up to my cousin, and she felt the need to slap me to set an example to the other cousins of what was going to happen if any of them went along with me and went against her. God. I feel like I've had lifetimes of this. Trying to stand up for the group, the collective group, and getting squashed down. Being the example, or the one that's used as an example of what's going to happen if you try to get out of line. I feel like that's probably a big part of why there's so much to this right now, even with the dogs. It's like the dogs, I've always had my dogs. The first one that we had was Chip, and he found us when I was a year old. And at first, since he found us, my parents weren't sure about having him around me because, I was like a year old. But he was already pretty well trained. So they think somebody probably lost him when they got out at a gas station or something and were passing through town. So he was just meant to be ours. But that dog was like my big protector for years. And yeah. Mentioned how I sometimes wondered if, like, Doogie was Chip coming back to me. But then I've also wondered that with Ziva, but then it's like, I don't... Would he have waited that long? I don't know. Taz, I feel, definitely could be Chance from before. And Gidge, I was thinking about that yesterday. I think she could have been Molly returned. Just some of the patterns, even with like, she's like really pushy about having attention. And of course, part of that was the point where my mom made me leave her with my ex for a time, that first time we tried to leave. You know, there's that, but I've also kind of wondered here lately if there's an element of it where, like Molly, I always kind of felt sorry for her because I felt like she got gypped when it came to attention for everybody else. She was kind of my dad's dog. She's one that had my brother still been living at home at all, she would have been his. So, yeah. But then, yeah, I was kind of wondering if maybe that one was Molly coming back. Yeah. I kind of feel like I'm going to skate today because this is a hot mess and kind of want to get the ickiness out of my system. Yeah. You know, I will say, Ziva's better today. We did get done walking today. We got our mile in, and she was good, but kind of started slowing down about 8/10 of the mile, or about 8/10 of a mile in. But we were so close to the car, but not quite there yet. Still had another section to go around. But when we got to the car, she started to jump and started to not make it, and I went to catch her, and she yelped, and I think I heard a spot on her belly, so I don't know if it's something with the liver, if she got into something else that she shouldn't have. She's 12, so I also can't just keep looking at everything as a reason to beat myself up over it too, because I know I have that tendency. And that's why I think this one's a process. I'm just never going to be ready for it, honestly. But yeah, like, the funny thing was, I carried her to her bed last night, and then I went and got the others. There are treats they like to have at bedtime, which they're these glucosamine hemp treats, and they all love that part of their routine, you know, Peppy included, you know, so it was really hard when Taz, Gidge, and Peppy were the only ones that showed up for their treats, and she's been so treat motivated her entire life, and so, you know, I gave Peppy hers, gave those two theirs, and took one back to her little bed to give her the one. Dude, we're almost done. Just chill. We're almost done. Thank you. So I gave her the one, and then I went back in there and, you know, was talking to my mom. Said, well, she took it, so I feel better about that now. She was still excited to have it. But then, hi, thank you, that's enough. That's enough slurps. Oh boy. Now we got both. Shh, stop. But then when I went, like, I got a bowl of water and wanted to see if she wanted more water, even though I filled the bowl that's in the room. Stop. Please stop. We're almost done. Let me finish this and then we'll be done. Shh. He might have to pee, to be honest. He drank all that water. Anyway, stop. The kids are bickering. Yeah, so I got a bowl of water, because I filled the bowl that I keep in my room. That I always have one in there because I know they like to get up in the middle of the night, get a drink, and go back to bed. So I had cleaned that one and filled it, but she didn't get up. So I gave her the treat, and then I went back and got a little bowl, and took her some. And when I was taking it back to her, she was standing in the doorway of my bedroom, and I was relieved because she was up, honestly. And she was, I mean, not quite back to normal, but a little bit better. And she was excited to get her second one. She followed me in there to have the other one, so there was that. But since she was doing better then, and she's a little different today, from yesterday, I guess. But not terrible, and she definitely wanted to come on our walk. I said, walk. It's like, we already did that one. Yeah. So she definitely wanted to do that. And she did, and she was a champ. Didn't start slowing down till that last little stop. It's 1:11 is on the timer as I'm talking about this stuff. And where we were at when we wrapped up, like, I pulled my phone out of my pocket to get the apps ready to shut off, and like we had like 20 feet to the car, and it said we were at 1.11 miles. And there's a car in the lot behind us that we walked past a couple of times that had 111 on the license plate. So that one's all about new beginnings, kids. So I know right there, but at the same time, it's kind of that transition point. I still don't like it, but I know it's coming. And I guess in a way, knowing makes it a little easier. Well, because I've been seeing her slow down for a while. Like, she doesn't get on the bed very much. She's had a couple times she kind of stumbled at getting up there. So she just kind of stopped, unless I have the curtains open and she's really interested in seeing something outside. Otherwise, she didn't bother getting on the bed at all. And there were a couple times she kind of fell off. Didn't get hurt. She landed on another dog bed, like one of the soft ones that was under it. But still, she didn't appreciate it. And yeah. But yeah, when she yelped when I caught her and was helping her back in, it's like, so, but I know can only do what we can do. And I know a big part of this whole thing is getting me ready for the transition, kind of easing me into it, and then making, now that I'm at this point, I can see all these little things that I have been seeing along the way, but I also knew neither one of us was ready yet, but I feel like she's getting closer, and I don't like it. But at the same time, I feel like she's also the biggest connection to the old way of being, and so it's going to be a necessary transition, but still don't like it. And I might cry every day between now and then, even if she sticks it out for another 3 months. I might cry every damn day thinking about it. I don't know that I think we got quite that much time left, but we're going to appreciate every day we do get, so, and probably cry a lot. Anyway, a whole freaking video of me just blubbering over my dogs. But here we are. I had to get it out of my system too. I've written about it. I've cried a lot about it. I'm going to skate it out, and then take a shower, and wash it out, and then still probably cry more later. But yeah, just hate that. Yeah. Anyway, as always, I appreciate you. Until the next time, see ya.